This time, Pastor will come out to preach the word. Hello, everyone. Let's look into the scriptures. Acts chapter 20, verse 7. Acts chapter 20, verse 7. Acts chapter 20, from verse 7. If you have found it, I'll read. And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart unto the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. And there were many lights in the upper chamber where they were gathered together. And there sat in a window a certain young man named Eutychus, being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep and fell down from the third loft and was taken up dead. And Paul went down and fell on him, and embracing him said, Trouble not yourselves, for his life is in him. When he therefore was come up again and had broken bread and eaten and talked a long while, even till the break of day, so he departed. And they brought the young man alive and were not a little comforted. I read up to here. I once went to a church and I was preaching about Eutychus. And the pastor told me you must start service at the correct time and finish at the right time. And he said if you preach too long, then it'll cause problems. And he said when you're having service, you must be dressed appropriately and sit down. And and one pastor said about Eutychus said, he should have come early. Paul should have preached shortly. And Eutychus shouldn't have sit on on the window. He should have sit appropriately. So like this, that's how this one pastor really interpreted this verse. So I realized that people all have very different interpretations. But this Bible, more than any other book, it is talking about the spiritual world to us. So if you know about and believe the spiritual world, and if you possess it, then God will strongly work in our lives. If you look in the Bible today, Eutychus, they were having service on the third floor, and it was dangerous. Yes, he sat on the window, and he should have felt inwards, but he felt outwards. So even if you go to church, you need to fall inside, but not outside. But what the Bible is telling us here is, as we live our lives, we have various difficulties in our lives. But now Eutychus, when he fell from the third floor lattice, the third floor window, it was 3 floors above the ground, so obviously he would have died, and he died. But the same people looked at Eutychus, and some people saw him as dead, but Paul said, Paul embraced him and said, Trouble not, for his life is in him. And not just for Paul, but if it was Jesus. Jairus' daughter was dead, but he said she's asleep. And according to the world of faith that we have, according to our heart, in our eyes, we can really make a totally new world, a different world. Melon farmers, if the farming goes well, then it's good. But even when it comes to melon farming, if you're able to farm it with faith, then everything goes so well. And once they had the church opening a service at Seongju, so I told Elder sung there. Is there a lot of work to do here in July? And what do you need to do in July? Oh, we need to pick the melons here, the Oriental melons in July. So I said, my grandchildren are coming from the United States, and I wanted to take them there. And I wanted them to pick Oriental melons from early in the morning to early until late at night. And he made them pick from early in the morning till just into the late morning because it got too hot in the afternoon. And it was so nice. But when I came, I saw that they had 50,000 won bills in their hand. And I asked her, where did you get it from? And they said, oh, the elder gave it to us. And then he gave us a couple of boxes of Oriental melons. So I thought, we should go and pick Oriental melons often. Even farmers in the world of faith, they're able to see a world that we could not have before. So Jairus' daughter was dead, but Jesus said that she was asleep. And if you have these kind of eyes, then as you live your life, then all things can rise in your life. For example, I'm doing a farming, I'm a hard time, and I'm in despair. And we can fall into that kind of a heart. When you look at it with the eyes of faith, wow. Oh, this is going to be so nice. Apostle Paul went to Philippi, and he cast out the demon from a girl. And because that ghost left, the demon left the girl, she could no longer fortune tell. So her master, she was his servant, and so he reported Paul, and he was whipped, and he was put into prison. But when you look in the Bible, the interesting thing is, Paul was confined to prison in the afternoon, but it says in the middle of the night, Paul and Silas were praying, and they started praising, and all the other prisoners listened to them. They were beaten, their whole body was hurting, aching, they were in pain. And they didn't know when they would be released from prison, they didn't know what to do next. So they were in fear. But it says in the middle of the night, Paul and Silas, it says they were praying, and then in the middle of the night, the other prisoners were listening. So until then, they were in pain. They were saying, "Oh, it hurts. Oh, I'm in pain." But then suddenly, in the middle of the night, Paul, he looked at himself and he realized, "Hey, God is alive amongst us. God is working inside of us. And if that God helps us, then He can work." So he changed his heart, and he began to praise, and he began to pray. So all of a sudden, there was an earthquake, and the prison doors were open, and they shook, and all of their shackles were broken. And then the prison guard woke up, and he saw all the prison doors are open. He thought they all run away, so he wanted to commit suicide. But Apostle Paul says, "Do not take your life. We are all here." So the prison guard, he was so shocked. And what he said was, and he asked, "Teacher, what must I do to gain eternal life?" He says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then you and your family will be saved. Believe in Jesus, and you and your family shall be saved." So in my heart, when I look towards the Lord, and if God is alive inside of me, then God's solving this problem is no problem at all. God's going to solve this problem. And because we had that kind of faith, Paul began to praise and began to sing, and he was so happy. And afterwards, he was saved, and he got up in the early morning. But if his heart was in despair, in Acts chapter 27, you see that Paul on his way to Rome. It says that in the Mediterranean there was a storm for 2 weeks, for 14 days and nights. And when all chances of being saved were lost, one day they were all afraid and they couldn't even eat. And Paul saw that the servant, the servant of the angel of God appeared and spoke to him. Paul, do not be afraid. You will stand before Caesar. And if you need to stand before Caesar, then that means I will not die. So because he had that faith in his heart, that's when the storm ended. So if you're frustrated because of something that frustrates you, then you'll continue to be frustrated, right? And if you're in sadness because you're sad, then you'll fall deep into sadness. So when you have those kind of difficulties, but instead if you look towards God, then God is almighty. He can do this for me. And then your heart will begin to believe in it. So Paul, he has to leave tomorrow. And so he spoke the whole night. And so Eutychus, he was sitting on the window on the third floor. He should have been careful. He should have fallen inwards, but he fell outwards instead, and he died. But in Paul's heart, he thought to himself, Eutychus came to my meeting and I preached too long, and because while listening to my sermon, he died. Oh, it's such a shame. Oh, this won't look good on the outside. But Paul, when he saw through the eyes of faith, it's not a problem for Jesus to save Eutychus. Jesus can save Eutychus. And he said, be quiet. And there is life inside of him. And so he was so happy because the youth was not breathing, but suddenly he came back to life. And those who don't believe in the Bible might say that's nonsense, but the Bible is the precise word of God, and God will not lie to us. So as we live our lives, so who doesn't have pain? There's no one that doesn't have pain. Who here doesn't have any sadness? There's no one who doesn't have sadness. Everyone has sadness. We all have problems, and we all have difficulties. But although we have these hardships and difficulties, don't look at the problems, difficulties with my eyes, but if God will help me, what will happen to this? Look at it with those kind of eyes. Jesus, because He is my master, because He loves me. And when I look at it with my eyes, then I always have hope. So Eutychus was surely dead. And likewise, the child was able to, to be able to breathe again, and was able to come back to life. So everyone, people who really believe in Jesus, You must have the faith that Jesus wants to heal me. And although I might not be able to do it, but Jesus, He can surely accomplish this. This is a difficulty, this is a hardship. Jesus doesn't help me. How can I do this? How can I accomplish this? And so, no matter what kind of difficulty, hardships that we may have, and if we're just worrying and always in worry, then it becomes a problem. But if Jesus helps me, then it will be so graceful. It'll end so gracefully. A long time ago, after I was discharged from the army in 1968, at that time I had the Sunday school service. And then I had a seminar in Namsa, and then we went to a place called Weim nearby. And the next morning, we had to walk a couple of kilometers, and we thought we were going to be late. So that night, we had some warning ceremonies and and the Bible seminar ended late, and we decided to depart. And the brother who was guiding us, he had just been discharged from the army, and it was starting to rain, and the sisters, and they had a lot of bundles they were carrying. So it was difficult. The road there was difficult. And so we took the bundles and we said, let's stop by here and let's pray. And so we prayed. God, please let us know the way to get there. But when we went there to that village, and we had to look for the pastor's house, and that brother didn't know the house, that pastor's house. And so I prayed. I said, God, when we need to get there quickly today, please guide us and show us the way. And after we prayed, before departing, what I prayed was, when we arrive at Weim, please let someone come out and greet us and meet with us. So in my heart, I had the faith that if God, that God would listen to me if we prayed. Because we were expected to arrive at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in that village. So who would come out to meet and to greet us in the village at that time? But we entered the village entrance. And we entered the village entrance, and there was a stadium there. There was a stage there. There was a small, like a patio, and there were some young youths waiting by the patio. And it was raining and drizzling, and they pushed their head out, and they looked at us, and they said, "Oh, hello, sir." And it was a brother that we knew. And then the brother that was guiding us greeted him and said, "Oh, these are the teachers who will be teaching at the Sunday school." And so they were waiting for us. And so I asked those people, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What were you doing underneath the tree in that patio? And what he said was, at our church, we have one elderly man at our church. And after service yesterday, we thought that he was going to pass away in the middle of the night. So we all gathered to see his final moments. And we thought he was going to pass away, but he didn't. And it was so hot, so we came outside to get some fresh air, and then we saw you. So I was afraid when I heard that because in the church in the countryside, if there's a funeral, the whole village is involved in that funeral. So if that funeral coincided with my with our seminar, then it would interrupt the seminar. So I prayed to God, please do not let that man pass away during the seminar period. And only that man didn't pass away during the seminar. He was alive until our Bible seminar ended. So I was so thankful. So don't look according to my calculations, but when you look at it through the eyes of Jesus, it might look impossible in my eyes, but it's something that I can fulfill. And this man called Eutychus, he fell from the lattice and he died. But Paul, he said, "Oh, this man, he died. Oh, it would have been nice if you could, be able to live. But if the Lord works, he can live. What's the problem?" And so he shared me, focused his heart on that, and he said, if the Lord works, he can live. Yes, he will live. And so as he led him by faith, and the youth came back to life. So everyone, before you, as we live our lives, there are difficulties and hardships, many difficulties before us. But don't just think about it negatively. Jesus, he is with me. And if he was here, how would he handle this? And that's what I think about. And because he loves me, he did this, and he will do this for me. And so we need to think with having faith in Jesus. And when that faith is fulfilled inside of me, then from then on, I'm able to stand in faith boldly, and then God, he will definitely work and live inside of us. So if you look in 7, in Acts chapter 20, verse 7, it says, "And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight." Verse 8, "And there were many lights in the upper chamber where they were gathered together." Verse 9, "And there sat in a window a certain young man named Eutychus, being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep, and fell down from the third loft, and was taken up dead. And Paul went down and fell on him, embracing him." So this young man was dead. So in our eyes, he's dead. He fell from the third floor, but if God works, why can't he live? Is that right? He even brought Lazarus, who was dead and rotting, back to life. And Jesus, he saved many people back to life, right? We can see that in the Bible, right? So it's not for us just to work. But as you do spiritual life and you do the, various things, you have many hardships, many despair. Many times you have many hardships and we're in despair. But inside my heart, if I take away Jesus, and if I just think inside my heart, it becomes a worry, it becomes worries and hardships and difficulties. And all I need to do is bring in Jesus into that difficulty and say, "Jesus, please come here. Please take care of this difficulty." And if that Jesus comes, then how will he solve that problem? He will really solve that problem really well. And if Jesus does it, he can solve it. And that's why if you have the faith to believe that Jesus will do that, then Jesus will live and work exactly like that, likewise inside of us. That's why in our church, we give offerings to God. That's also nice, good as well. But to change your life by living by faith. So when you stand before a certain situation or problem, if Jesus was here, Jesus would have solved this problem. He would have helped this problem. Then if he helps, then this problem will be solved and I will be blessed. And I'm thankful. I'm so happy. It's having that kind of faith in our heart, and as we live our lives, then inside of your life, all the worries, if you have faith, and if the faith comes inside of me, then there's nothing that can't be solved. It will be solved, be graceful, blessed. So the brothers inside our church, they do many amazing works. Sister Moon-Hye-jin, she's exercising her legs. The doctors say, why are you doing that? Don't do that. You can't walk. You're not be able to walk. You need to learn how to live your life without walking. But because she has faith, nowadays her leg is a lot more strengthful, and she has this faith that she'll walk within this year, according to God's blessing. And she's practicing walking a lot these days. I'm not sure how much, but inside of God, there's always hope, there's always joy. And no matter what situation we face, we know that God will work. So rather than just working at at our workplace and living with our children, though we live this kind of life, but inside the life that I live, for Jesus to come to my life and work inside my life, and if He comes and He helps me in this work, and if He protects me, God, He will protect me. He will live inside of me. It will work well. It will go well. Then He will provide a bright future for my children. And if He makes us lead our lives in that kind of direction, but inside your heart, you'll begin to have faith inside your heart. What can I do? I can't do it. Don't just think like that. Though there are difficulties and hardships, this problem, if it was Jesus, what would I do? If it was Jesus, I would help. Jesus would help me. So from that heart, it's bringing Jesus into any kind of situation, and you think about Jesus, you ponder about Him, believe that He will work, believe that He will help me, and as you do that, when Jesus helps and protects me, then what will be a problem? The problem is when we have difficulties, hardships, and diseases, we think that Jesus will not help me. That's when it becomes a problem. But if Jesus helps me, then there is nothing that will be a problem. There's nothing that will be a problem. And so, I have this kind of money, and I'm going to live like this and do this. Don't just live like that. Though I may not only have this much amount of money, but if the Lord is with me, then He will help me. And by having that life of faith, if you run forward with that life of faith, then it is so interesting and so fun. And God, He truly does work. That in our heart, we bring in Jesus into our heart, and these things that I need to worry about, think about those things. And remember and wait for the Lord and look towards the Lord, believe in Him. And when you do those things, then God, He will live and work inside of you. Some people, they just live spiritual life. They live their lives having nothing to do with God. But if you clearly live spiritual life and you have difficulties, and think about, how will Jesus help me in this problem? Jesus, please help me in this way. Jesus, please help me. You pray once, pray twice, 3 times, and as you do this, then in your heart you have this faith that God will help me. When I lived in Kimcheon, the house owner, he received a deposit of 200,000 won. But then the house got auctioned over to the bank because he gambled, and then he just ran away with our deposit. So the bank, people from the bank always came to the house and asked us to leave. And I was having such a hard time because we had to find the house. And I've said this story many times, but whenever I think about it, I'm so thankful. And every early morning, I prayed in the attic. And one day while praying, Jesus said to me, "Don't just pray. Look for a building." That was the heart that he gave me. So we ate in the morning, and it was such a nice building. This is a nice building for us to use. And I asked, and he said the deposit was 200,000 won, and we didn't have any money at the time. So the situation was really bleak for us. So we came back. 2-3 months passed by, and the situation wasn't solved. And about 2 or 3 months later, the bank manager came to me, and I told the bank manager, "I don't have anything to tell you, and I have some business in Daegu." And he said, "Oh, you can go." And I bought the bus ticket, and he also bought one, and he sat next to me and he talked to me. And I said, "Listen to the bank manager. What I thought in my heart was, can you solve this problem?" "No, I can't, Lord. You must do it." "Then why are you not talking about Jesus, the Lord?" I didn't talk about Jesus to him at all. It's because I didn't want to use his name in vain just to kind of get me out of a difficult situation. So that day, for the first time, I said to the owner, I said to him, "Sir, I'm not leaving because I don't want to leave. I've already reported to my owner, but the owner hasn't given me permission yet." And he was shocked. "Oh, you also have an owner?" "Yes, I have an owner." "Where is he?" "He's in heaven. Jesus is my owner." And he said to me, "Mr. Park, I don't believe in Jesus, but listening to your story, it really does touch my heart. But please keep this in your prayers, and I hope that the problem will be solved." And he didn't go all the way to Waegwan, and he went back to Kimcheon. And I spent some time in Daegu. And one day I was praying, and he said, "How is that building you saw last time?" That was the heart that God gave me. I said, "Oh Lord, that building was so nice. That building was really nice, but it's probably sold." And we ate breakfast and we came back, and it was still there. And so I went in, and there were adults there. So at nighttime, I met the owner, and I kept having the heart that God would give this land to me, this house to us, but we didn't have any money. So I told the owner there. I told him, "I am a servant of God. I'm sorry to tell you, there was one person who inflicted a lot of pain upon us, and we had a 200,000 deposit. But the owner, he auctioned the house over to the bank, and he didn't even give back us the deposit, and he ran away. And so we have to leave without even having getting back our deposit. And so I told this to the owner, and I told him, I don't have any money, but if you'll give it to me, please give it me. And he closed his eyes and he thought for a long time. And he says, I'm an elder at a church in Jijadong. God has given me a nice land next to a national road. If a servant of God has need of it, how can I block him from getting it? Please use the land. And I was so thankful. And I was about to leave. He says, but if you come empty-handed, it might make us both feel kind of uncomfortable. How much can you prepare? And I don't know why I said it, but I said 80,000 won. And he said, damn, that's enough. Please bring what you have. And I thought, why did I say 80,000 won? Because we didn't have 80,000 won, but from that day on, I saw how God worked. First, I went to the bank owner and I told him, the bank manager, I said, the problem has been solved. And this Friday, we'll be moving out. And he said, oh, Mr. Park, I'm trying to become a member of parliament. And I felt like I was, I was I was preventing your career from growing. I'm sorry. And then he took some money out from his account. And he gave me 10,000 won. And I was so thankful. And there was the 50,000 won that I couldn't receive. And the lady, she brought, 40,000 won in a handkerchief and she gave it to me. And so we had 50,000 won. And I had one friend, and he said to me, I heard you're having some difficulties. I'm doing my business right now, and I have some, money. I don't have a lot of money, but I have about 20,000 left over. You can use this. If you can pay back, then you can pay back. And so I was so thankful. And so we were lacking 10,000 won. And I told the brothers and sisters living with us to bring everything they had. And so we gathered everything we had, and it was 10,000 won. And so in those times, it's almost like a dream. And I can't forget about it. I was serving this kind of God until why would I not serve this kind of God? This kind of God is serving so close next to me. He knows everything about me. He's protecting me, watching over me. And to have that God with me, I'm so happy and so thankful. I can't explain in words. We are serving and believing the same kind of God, right? And it's that same God. And please be close to God. Do you understand? Don't just be in worry and hardships, but discuss with God. I discuss with God often. I say, God, I have this kind of difficulty. God, please help me. I discuss with Him. And then, there are times when we have difficulties and really big hardships, but if you look towards God and if you rely on Him, then He will surely help us. And that's why even if it's a small thing, but experience God and say, God, this is not done by me, this was done by God. If you experience this, then you will have that faith inside of you. Then you'll want to do it twice, 3 times. And every time something happens, you want to rely on God. And then God, He will bless our lives. and will make it so blessed and make us be able to live such a blessed life. In our lives, there's no one who doesn't have any difficulties. There's no one who doesn't have any problems. But but if you're worried about the problems by yourself, then those problems and worries will remain as problems and worries. They won't help you in any bit. But if you don't just be worried, but if you include God into it, God, I'm in this kind of situation, but please help me, God. God, I'm lacking some money. Who can solve this, Lord? Lord, if you don't do it, I can't do it. There's nothing that I can do. And my son has this kind of problem. Lord, please, you need to solve this. And don't just be worried and in fear, but bring God into my life. And through God, if you work through God, if you do it once, 2 times, 3 times, the more and more you do it, your faith will grow. And later on, no matter what kind of difficulty comes to you, you have the faith that God is going to help you. And when you have that kind of faith, then you will clearly see how God is alive and working. I had a weak heart, and I thought I was going to die. But then God, He solved my disease, and I had a bad stomach, and He solved that problem. And that Lord, He is alive and working inside of us right now. So everyone, God is not someone who is closer to Oaks Park and farther away from you. He loves us all the same. That is the kind of God He is. So God is living and working inside of us. And we believe this amazing truth inside of us. And you discuss this and pray to God, God, please help me in this field. God, please, I believe that you will do this, God, Lord. Or I will rely on you. And if you think it's not going to work, that's up to God, or it's not going to work or not. Don't be afraid. But go up to God one by one and ask of Him one thing and give these problems to His hands. And also the problem of the children, money problems. Give those things one by one to God and believe that God will help you with faith one by one. God will surely help you. He will bestow His grace upon you, and He will bestow a much blessed life to us. So when you experience that by faith one by one, then your faith will begin to grow. During this time, that means something like this, but I want to solve this problem by God. I want to see how God is working and living amongst us. Let's see how God, He is working in us right now. And when you run forward with that kind of faith, then God truly He leads us with faith. And we can see how He blesses us. There's Eutychus here. Eutychus has died. If you just look at it with our humanistic thoughts, pastor is preaching so long. Eutychus died. Oh, what a shame. That's probably how we might think. But Paul, when he saw this, his heart was in so much pain. And he knew that though God could save him, God, please save him. And he prayed for his son Eutychus. And he said, God, I believe that you will save me. And have more and more faith. And see how Eutychus came to life. And he's able to breathe out loud. And how happy and thankful and grateful would he have been. And so, to us Christians, it starts from these big blessings, start from big difficulties. When you have difficulties, if you take care of it through humanistic ways, it might not be a difficulty. But in those difficulties, if you rely on God and you discuss with God and you believe in God, and if you work with that kind of faith, then you'll be able to live such a blessed life. So if you look at the story of Eutychus, I'm so grateful. So we as well, although we might not have any faith, but don't just say you don't have faith, but all you need to do is just believe that God is alive amongst us. God, I believe in you. Lord, I have faith in you. When you have that faith in God, then God, He will surely live and work inside of you. After receiving salvation, in the past, I could not even imagine it, but as I faced it one by one and I saw how God worked, then I could see how faith grew inside of me. So, everyone, while you live inside of Jesus, don't just let that leave Jesus alone by himself. Don't be afraid that he might be too, that he might be too tired, but call on the Lord every day, and say, Lord, I have no way to solve this. Lord, you need to solve this problem. Lord, I believe that you will solve this problem. And when you're having difficulties, Lord, He will not get angry. Even if you do it 1,000 times, ask Him 10,000 times, He'll be happy. So take all your problems to God and believe that He will solve them. And if you have that faith, then God will work powerfully and blessedly so that you can live a glorious life. Let us pray.